Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Garbage Time Takes. As always, I am Derek here with my co-host Dennis
That's right, baby. That's right. We here.
and Bobby.
Welcome back.
And I think what I wanted to start out with this week, there's been a lot of news in the MLB. There's been a lot of news in the NFL. There's been a lot of news in college football. One head coach, a big name was signed to a certain institution. But that's not who we're going to talk about first. Dennis, the UC Bearcats, as we discussed last week, lost Luke Fickell to Wisconsin. And there
They
was a lot
did.
of
They did.
talk. There was a lot of talk from UC fans on the social medias talking about Brian Hartline, talking about, I don't even know, Garrett Riley,
Dion.
Dion, um, Jesse Minter. UC fans were thinking, yeah, we'll just replace one big name coach with another. Can you inform the people who may not be aware of the UC Bearcat football program who they ended up getting as their head coach?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I don't think a lot of people are aware of who the UC Bearcats hired as their head coach because not a lot of people follow the Louisville Cardinals out of the ACC. But if you do, congratulations, because now I've got to follow him. Scott Satterfield.
Correct.
Bobby, and the people. Scott Satterfield, former Louisville Cardinal head coach, former Appalachian State head coach from 2014 to 2018. I was doing some digging just earlier today, and a lot of success at Appalachian State. A lot of success at App State. 47-16 overall record in his 4 seasons at App State, which is probably why he got hired by the Louisville Cardinals. And I'll dig into a couple numbers, I guess, and then just give some thoughts. 25-24 overall record at Louisville. But just an incredibly average ACC team from 2019 through this last season. His best wins, this is where I'm going to puke. His best wins in those 4 seasons. Wake Forest in 2019, who was ranked 19th at the time. It didn't beat a ranked opponent in 2020, so I'm just going to say Wake Forest at unranked was his best win in 2020. Another season without a ranked win against anybody. Best win in 2021, probably Florida State. And then probably the best win in his entire tenure as a head coach ever is number 10 Wake Forest last season.
Hey, at least
So
he owns the juggernaut that is Wake Forest football.
So if we want to beat Wake Forest,
Deacons.
we got our man. We can beat Wake Forest, at least. I can give you that. The problem is Wake Forest is not in the Big 12. And I don't think there's a situation in which we're really going to play Wake Forest. I don't know too much about the man. I was incredibly disappointed. I thought we could have done a lot better.
Was this a reality check?
Necessarily know.
Was this a reality check for where
the
UC football program actually is in the grand scheme of college football?
No, it's not a reality check. It's a crappy job by the athletic director and the other individuals in charge of making this hire. It's a lack of ability and just a lack of ability to bring in somebody who actually can help us out in our transition to the Big 12. I was just I can't remember the guy's name. There was also a assistant from Ohio State who was getting a lot of traction, which
Brian Hartline, their wide receivers coach.
Oh, I thought there was another one. Maybe it was just Brian Hartline. But either way,
yeah.
Replace Luke Fickell with somebody who could be the next Luke Fickell. That's fine with me. Dion would have certainly been interesting. Louisville, the best you can do is Louisville. Come on.
Not to mention, Dennis. Not to mention, he turncoated right before playing you in the bowl game, and now he's not going to coach anybody.
That was going to be the interesting thing I was going to bet. We literally play them in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl on Saturday, December 17th, coming up here in just over a week. I mean, tune in for that one. Holy crap. I mean, the irony of that is also kind of hilarious. But, we do get to play
and he's not even coaching either team, Dennis.
No, he's not. He's not going to coach either team.
Which is a coward move, if I say so myself.
I mean, just take a look at the guy, too. I hate to judge based on looks. Dude looks like a loser. I'm sorry. He just does not look like a winner.
Oh, no.
It does not look like a winner. There's certain people in the sports world, you look at him, you go, that dude's a winner. This is not one of them. He looks like
Bob,
he's about to be the next Tommy Tuberville.
Oh, no. Bob, I told Dennis that this was a reality check for the UC program. He didn't seem to be in agreement. What we've been pretty realistic about UC football this whole season. We knew that they were going to eventually fall to Tulane, and the head coaching search results would indicate that UC is just not a destination program, even with the move to the Big 12 coming up.
Yeah, I mean, this is 100,000,000% a reality check. It also didn't help that in my opinion, it was a relatively weak coaching class that was, apparently even, looking for
That's
hires.
Fair.
So I'll give you that much. But you weren't able to really lure anybody, out of the existing programs that they were at and bring them into UC. Not even, like the Jesse Minters of the world. Not even who's definitely not going to UC because he's trying to go to like the next, actually great program. And you weren't able to draw on the guy from Ohio State. And you should have been on Deion's line because I would have loved to see Deion being the coach of UC because that would have gave me all the much more reason to root for the Bearcats. But
I don't understand that, by the way. I don't know how much we were really on his line, but if it was an on option, I mean, Colorado.
I mean, yeah.
You're telling me UC couldn't compete with the Colorado Buffaloes?
He passed you up for
reality check, Dennis.
A 1-11 Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah, that makes no sense. It's not even logical. It's not a reality check because I can't put my brain around the fact that someone would want to go to Colorado over a consistently over the last couple of seasons ranked team. Went to the college football playoff a year ago, 9 wins this season, moving to the Big 12 where competition will be better. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't fathom it. I'm sorry.
I think it's a number of things. 9 wins this season against the American. Prime's thinking 4 wins against the Big 12.
So I'm just going to take 1-11 Colorado instead.
Correct. Because it's not...
Colorado is about to play in one of the weakest Power 5 conferences, if not the weakest Power 5 conference in the nation.
So you're basically telling me your take is Deion is weak and doesn't want to face any adversity.
Well, I think it's a better like when Colorado ultimately turns it around, it won't take much. Like in the ultimate long run, it won't take much to improve Colorado and consider it a success when you come in and their previous season was 1-11. And they play in the Pac-12, which I have no respect for, just in all clarity. Here's like the Americans right here in terms of my respect. The Pac-12 is like right here, just like a touch.
Good coaches don't get their clout by winning in weak conferences.
Well, I mean,
Dennis,
exactly.
Here's what I'll say: you can't forget that Colorado is a rich white person state. And Colorado is the only brand name school in their state. They have Colorado, Colorado State, and Air Force. Deion's not having to compete with Ohio State for recruits. He just has to get better than Colorado State and Air Force.
Yeah, but he's also recruiting Colorado high school talent, which, I mean, I don't know anything about it, but it can't be that good.
You got to remember, Deion's got those Florida connections, Dennis. And he's got those Texas.
And he's not competing with Colorado State at all anyway.
And Dennis, what about
those guys to UC?
He's going to be the top. He's the immediate top dog in his state.
Dennis, what about the fact that you just told me that good coaches don't get clout for playing in crappy conferences when your coach just jumped ship, playing in a crappy conference into a top-tier conference with a pretty storied program?
Bobby, the American's not a conference. It's not a crappy conference.
So it is. It's just fact.
If it wasn't a crappy conference, Dennis,
you would have had a coach. You would have had a coach.
Correct.
Because going 9 and whatever, what was your record? 8 and something? 9 and something?
9-3.
9-3 would have meant something. Instead, it means you get to play in whatever that no-name bowl is that against Louisville.
Don't crap on the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, okay? A very notable bowl.
Dennis, last thing, and then we'll get your closing thoughts on the whole thing. Will this be a 2-trophy game? Will this be for both the Wasabi Fenway Bowl trophy and the Keg of Nails trophy, dating back to your ACC rivalry days?
Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, there is definitely some rooted rivalry there between the schools. I mean, obviously not that far apart geographically. Used to play a lot more than they have as of recent. I don't even know the last time we played Louisville, but
I think it was like 2014 or something.
It's been a hot minute. I can tell you that. Yeah, I mean, it should be interesting. I mean, I'll definitely be tuned in. And then, I mean, final thoughts. I'm disappointed, as you could probably tell from me ranting here a little bit, but I'm hopeful too. I mean, once you get on the plane, once you board the plane, you never hope that the pilot fails, no matter how much you hate him. So hopefully the guy, Scott Satterfield, that is, can come in and produce and be better than I'm anticipating. I don't know too much about him other than what I've spilled here the last few minutes. It just seems like it was kind of a weak hire. It just does.
Unfortunate indeed, Bob. We talked about the real brand name hire, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, a little bit. Went in, told his players that
Get ready for the portal. Get ready for the portal.
That if they're not willing to work for him and not be a 1-11 team, to pack their bags because he's bringing his.
Louis, and it's Louis, baby.
And they're Louis.
And it's Louis.
Colorado.
Very interesting.
I don't know how long Deion plans on staying there. Maybe it's just until his kids get through college, and then he'll look to see if he can take the next step somewhere else. But the Pac-12 is wide open. There's a very strong possibility that Deion can take the Colorado Buffaloes to the expanded college football playoff in 2 years if he recruits at a high enough level.
Like I said, American Pac-12 and Pac-12 might even be here upon losing USC and UCLA, right? Because they're members of the Pac-12 currently. So once they lose them, Dennis, I'm sorry to say, but you're bailing the American right when you're about to move above another Power 5 conference in my ranking. So I apologize. It's unfortunate timing for you.
Yeah, well, the American won't be above the Pac-12 even after those moves with the departure of Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston.
We'll have to reevaluate. We'll have to reevaluate in a year, Dennis. But I just love listening to Coach Prime speak. I mean, there's all kinds of videos of him, when he was at Jackson State giving speeches to the teams, and now, of course, when he's going to Colorado and having his initial meetings with the teams. Just a really intriguing guy to listen to. Somebody that you can tell practices, at least it seems like practices what he preaches, and cares a lot about trying not only to make good football players, but trying to improve the lives of the people that play for him and give people real genuine advice, at least from an outsider's perspective. And so I'm really excited for Colorado. I hope he succeeds, and I'm shocked that UC couldn't hire him.
Colorado has a very cool stadium. I got to see it from the outside.
Well, they got to have something.
They have nice facilities.
They do have very nice facilities, and they have a very unique. It just looks cool. They got a cool looking stadium. Colorado has been like the butt of the Pac-12 almost ever since they moved from they were the Big 8 before it became the Big 12, and then they bailed and went to the Pac-10. That's now the Pac-12. I'll still never forgive them for beating U of M on a Hail Mary, Cordell Stewart. Screw ya. But I've got no issue with Colorado, and if Coach Prime makes Colorado great, I'd rather he make Colorado great than USC or Texas. Imagine Coach Prime coaching UT. Bob, I know how much you love to say that Texas is back, but Colorado's Colorado's a program that like I have no personal issues with. So if he were to have success at Colorado, I'd be like, yeah, good for Coach Prime. Dennis, you did not seem to be in agreement with me when I said that the Buffs could be in the expanded college football playoff in 2 years. What makes you think so?
I'm sorry, something just started playing on my computer, just like spazzed out for a second. What was the question?
You did not seem to be in agreement with me when I said that Colorado could be in the college football playoff when it expands in 2 years. You made a bit of a face, so I was just wondering what your thought process was as to where your disagreement stems from.
My disagreement is what I would consider fairly simple. I just don't see, and even if Coach Prime has some success, which he could, he certainly could. I just don't see how you turn around a 1-11 Colorado program with everybody who's there currently that fast. I mean, if he sticks it out and he really stays at Colorado for a few years, I don't know what contract he signed, and I don't know what his plans are for getting out there as soon as he can. But when you recruit talent to come to your school, which he will recruit talent, don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. He will recruit talent. People will go play for him, as they maybe should. But I mean, those dudes are sophomores when you're talking college football playoff. From 1-11 to college football playoff, that it just doesn't make any sense.
The transfer portal, though, Dennis. The portal.
I don't think you're getting that. I mean, I think you have to have a little bit of success before people are transferring into 1-11 Colorado.
Dennis, the boosters
you sure?
are on
because
board.
because the reports. I don't know about that, Dennis. The reports were that as soon as Deion announced he was going to Colorado, he had over 200 recruits reach out to him.
Well, I mean, yeah, but what were the stars on those recruits? Let's take a look.
Alleged multiple 4 and 5 stars. I can't confirm how many of them there were.
Alleged.
But I mean, let's be real.
That's fair.
Colorado wasn't even pulling in that many 3 stars, probably. I mean, it won't take much to turn them. I fully expect Colorado to be bowl eligible next year. Arizona was nearly bowl eligible this year, and they were a 1-win team last year and a 0-win team the year before. So I don't see why Coach Prime wouldn't be. And
in what conference was that, Derek? In what conference?
And that would be the Pac-12
Correct.
Conference. I mean, Colorado couldn't even beat their buy-in games. Like the people that they paid to fly out to Colorado, they couldn't even beat them.
Correct.
And if the U of A can turn around a 1-11 team, previously 0-12 team, to a 5-7 team and nearly get a bowl game, I'm sure Coach Prime can do the same, if not even better.
I mean, I guess we'll see. I just don't see a turnaround that fast. I mean, just thinking about UC as an example, when Luke Fickell took over and really turned this program into a winning program, a dominant in the American until this year, whatever, you can poke holes in that program. It was not in shambles. We were borderline bowl eligible team for the previous seasons before that. It was average, disappointing for sure, but not 1-11, can't even beat the guys we fly out to us. I mean, it's just a tough situation. I wish him luck, and maybe it'll happen faster than I sit here and anticipate, but it's just a tall task.
I'm putting it in my calendar.
The calendar's been out. By the way, I need to get something out of your calendar. I know I said it in the group chat this week.
That's not coming out of the calendar, Dennis. That is staying in the calendar, and it will be.
I made a prediction for the.
It will be revisited.
I made it a year-long prediction, and I tried to retract it 4 days later, and it's permanent. It's permanently inked.
Correct. Because Dennis was all high and mighty that UC wasn't going to have any problems moving to the Big 12. And then they hired Louisville's backwater, and he doesn't want
I
it.
didn't think we would hire. I didn't think we would make such a garbage hire.
Well, don't worry. On the same day that August 26th, that I said Dennis declared on December 1st that UC will be middle of the road and bowl eligible next year. I am making my own bold take that Colorado will be bowl eligible, so it's in the calendar permanently.
Did I not earlier this week send a text saying I
Oh, you sent a text, all right.
backed my
The
previous.
text was sent. A text was sent.
That's all I need to say. That's all I need to say. I'll
But
let the people decide
unfortunately,
what they think.
unfortunately, your wish of retraction has been denied. Unfortunately.
Oh man,
That's a take you're gonna have to live with.
judge,
Dennis-
jury, and executioner. Dang.
Dennis, the stove has been hot in the MLB.
Yes, it has been very hot.
It has been red hot. But before we get there, I almost forgot about the college football playoff. Michigan back to back in the college football playoff. 13-0 season, the first ever in the University of Michigan football program history. Getting to take on the TCU Horned Frogs. Ohio State slides in the back door. If USC wouldn't have even played their conference championship game, they probably would have been in. But they lost to the same team twice in 1 year, and it's tough to keep two lost teams in the college football playoff. If they were a one-loss team, they'd probably still be there, but they're not. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on who you think will win the semifinal matchups and then ultimately the national championship. We'll start with you, Bob.
I hope so badly that it's U of M OSU for all the marbles when it comes down to it, because it's just a storybook. It's just a storybook finish. But unfortunately, if I'm being realistic, I've got the Michigan Wolverines clearing out the TCU Toads in short order because they're garbage, and I think they're way over garbage for what I think many people think they are. I just think they're a little bit overrated.
No, the third team in the country is garbage.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, maybe they'll pull something out against Michigan and silence me. But I think that as much as I want OSU to win, and I do really want them to win, just so I could see the rivalry matchup in the title game, because that would be sweet. And it would make.
You want to put me through that kind of stress and anxiety, Bob?
I mean, I would think that you. I honestly don't know how you'd be feeling more stressed if it was Ohio State than if it was Georgia, given the fact that you've already beat Ohio State, and
Well, that's precisely the reason, Bob. Because now you got the added pressure of already having beaten them once.
Well, you see, that's kind of why
we don't need to prove ourselves.
That's kind of why I want to
We've
see
already
it.
proved it.
But I think Georgia will get the job done.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
And I really don't think that either game is going to be a one-score game. I think both of them will be decided by more than one score.
And who's your national champion? Georgia over Michigan?
At this point, it's hard for me to see otherwise at this moment in time. I guess it really...
They are the defending national champions.
It's hard to say. I'm going to have to see how JJ plays against TCU, because I don't know, I don't like Michigan, obviously, because I'm a State fan, but from as a more objective, being objective, Bob, I think the thing that concerns me the most about U of M's team at times is JJ. I don't know why. I've just never, every time I've tuned into U of M football, I've never really been just completely sold and bought into his mystique, and for whatever reason. So, hopefully if he has a solid game against TCU, maybe I'll reevaluate. But Georgia right now is my pick.
Dennis.
Speaking of sending text to the group chat, there was another text sent, and Derek, I think you're gonna be happy about this one, because it was basically last Saturday I was watching these conference championship games, and I said to my co-host here, Georgia and Michigan are the two best teams in the country, and it's not particularly close. And that is still how I feel. And Michigan just looked really good. I know it's Purdue. Looked really good.
In the second half. Looked really
in the
good
second
in
half,
As we always do.
in the second half. But I was worried for you in the first half. I was.
Correct. I was a little worried for you in the first half. And honestly, there was a little
Bob, you're never
small
worried
part
for
of me.
But it's
You're
I mean,
never
imagine
worried
the
for me. I
disaster.
was never
Imagine the
worried.
disaster.
I'm honestly I was more worried about you guys wetting the bed against Purdue than I am against for you playing TCU. That's just being honest.
Fair.
Well, for me, there was just a small part of me going into that game. It just felt like the perfect trap game if there ever was one. I mean, you just came down the mountaintop from beating an Ohio State team that you just struggled so much against in recent history, and Jim Harbaugh has such a horrible history against, but finally get the big win in good fashion at Ohio State, at the Horseshoe. And then all you have to do is
planting flags.
All you have to do. And there was
going
a small
Baker
part
Mayfield.
of me that felt that
Mayfield.
felt like it was going to be a trap, but it was. I mean, you really turned it on in the second half, and given the full 60 minutes of that game, it was pretty much domination. And then Georgia did the same thing to LSU, basically. So there's no doubt in my mind that those are the two best teams in the country. I've been on the TCU bandwagon. I love the Horned Frogs, and I hope they're competitive in this game. Max Duggan is a baller, plays with a lot of heart, and it was really fun to watch this whole season, especially the last couple weeks.
You're not going to back your boys, Dennis? You're not going to back your boys?
He's going to have to do something that I haven't seen out of him and this TCU team if they have any hope in the semifinal. So I'm taking Michigan. I'm also taking Georgia because I think that they're just the better team, and that will be a championship game I am excited to watch.
Can we get a prediction, Dennis?
For the
championship game.
For the championship game, if it sets up that way, I'm still going to take Georgia.
Fair.
I'm still going to take Georgia, but it'll be fun.
All right, now it's time to get into gamer mode, lean forward in the chair a little bit. I'll tell you why I was not nervous about Purdue. Because this Michigan team, prepares for every team like it's the national championship. So for me, there wasn't really a fear of a letdown game. Because their goals are so much higher than just beating Ohio State. We had 4 goals this year, and I listed them off last week. Beat MSU, beat OSU, win the Big Ten, win the national championship. Those were the 4 goals. They weren't just going to allow a win at Ohio State define their season. They wanted more than that. Last year, I was a little bit worried going into Iowa because it was, all right, we finally got the monkey off our back. Now we're playing with house money. We're just happy to be here sort of vibe. This team's on a different mission. And I'm all for the ride with this team on their mission. And so going into that Purdue game, I was never really concerned. Sure, there was just, normal Big Ten championship nervous energy, but I never really felt like we were ever in danger of losing that game. Because Michigan's the best second half team in the country. And all they have to do is keep it close for the first half, make their adjustments, and then absolutely dumpster you for the last 30 minutes of the game. I also very much like Max Duggan. I think he's a baller. I'm a huge fan.
He is.
But he plays in the Big 12. And I've already seen what happens when Michigan plays a Big 12 defense with even more talented players than the Big 12. That was none other than Ohio State's defense, running a Big 12 defense with Big 10 players. And we dropped what? A fat 45 points on him, 47 points, whatever it was. I lost track because it was so close to 50. So I'm not particularly worried. I wouldn't mind facing Ohio State again, I just don't think they deserve to face us again. They had their chance to beat us at home, and then we humiliated them in front of 17 million people. So I don't think they deserve to get a second chance against us this year, which is why I would like to face Georgia and get our rematch from last year when they absolutely kicked our butts and showed us what a real elite team looks like. I don't know if Michigan is there yet, but out of principle, I'm going to take them in the national championship anyway, because why not? So that'll be my
You have
prediction.
to.
Michigan, Georgia, national championship, and Jim Harbaugh finally brings home the glory that he set out to do 7 years ago. He was hired in 2014. Bob, what bowl is MSU playing in this year?
Derek, that's a low blow. Come on.
Hey, man, come on.
Are you kidding?
Well,
me?
I know the last couple weeks I've thrown out some low blows. That's the low though. Come on.
Well, Dennis, I feel like me and Bob always give you a hard time about UC. And so I think it's only fair that since Bob is the only team without a bowl eligible football program, that we just had to remind him.
Okay,
You know,
sure.
I was gonna say, you see what happened to Colorado after Mel Tucker left them? Went right into the 1-11 dark ages. I mean, holy smokes!
True.
What?
True.
I mean, Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker left that dumpster fire in the middle of the night for a reason, because he couldn't recruit Jack to get out to Colorado.
Correct. Holy
Anyway,
smokes!
Dennis, how are your hands feeling? Are they burning? Because the stove is hot.
The stove is hot, man. I can feel it in my fingers. I can feel it in my palms.
Because since he made so many moves.
I mean, feel free, Dennis, to go ahead while I drink some water here. I mean, let the people know about all the madness that's going on in the MLB world. I've got a couple names in my head in case you miss any.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big one everybody was talking about, Aaron Judge. There was some reports that, at least I heard reports that he was going to San Fran, and that was more or less a done deal. And then the next day we find out he's basically he's not doing that. He's re-signing with the New York Yankees on a monster contract. 9 years or 11. I've got them all mixed up. It's either
there's a lot of long deals.
There's
I
a
think
lot
it's
of long
9.
deals.
I think
It's
his
a long
is 9.
deal. I'm trying to pull it up now, but yeah, Judge back to the Yankees. All rise, Bob. You got any comments on that? I know you love him.
All right.
I know you love the Judge.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone who thought he was going anywhere else was just misguided. And all rise. Thank you.
We've got Trey Turner reuniting with Bryce Harper in Philadelphia. That's a mega deal. I'm trying to figure out how Philadelphia has any money left.
Dave Dombrowski, Dennis. Dave Dombrowski is a master money spender. We saw it in Detroit.
Yeah, it is.
He knows how to spend money. Look no further than Miguel Cabrera's contract that we're still paying for because he won't retire. Although he is retiring after this year.
We love you,
Miguel.
Miguel. We love you, Miguel.
We do love and appreciate Miguel for all he did, but I wish he would have retired at the end of last year so that we could save some money.
Speaking of Derek's teams, the
oh my gosh, Derek!
The St. Louis Cardinals, Bobby.
Derek, this is an abomination, and you should revoke fandom for what Dennis is about to say. You should this is fandom revoking. That should be
Contreras. Gone.
Here's what I'll say. And then I'll let Dennis get into the more big names like Xander Bogaerts.
That is a big name.
Max
Wilson Contreras is a big name.
Justin Verlander and Jacob deGrom. I'll let Dennis talk about those after this. The Cubs have let me down in the offseason once again. We gave $17 million to Cody Bellinger, former NL MVP, but he blows the past 2 years. He has not been very good. Jameson Taillon has had 2 Tommy John surgeries.
And he's been bought.
Is quite literally the definition of mid as a starting pitcher.
And I've had to watch
$17 million a year for 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
Or is it 5 years? I don't remember. Wilson Contreras signed a $17 million a year deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. You're telling me we could fork over $17 million a year each to Jameson Taillon and Cody Bellinger, but not one of, if not the best offensive catchers in the MLB? All offseason,
And the soul of your
we
team.
heard all offseason, we heard from Cubs management, ownership, and GM. We've got money to spend and we're going to spend it. And while I appreciate them spending money, I would have liked to see it go to our homegrown catcher and players that aren't mid. Xander Bogaerts, as Dennis is about to tell us, has gone to San Diego, so he's off the market. Trey Turner has gone to Philadelphia. He's off the market. Aaron Judge is off the market. So instead, we're signing a bunch of washed dudes who are mid. And if they don't get Dansby Swanson or Carlos Correa, it'll be another offseason of the Cubs saying, "Well, we tried to spend money, but they were all taken," and it's pretty annoying. The Cubs are losers. The Cubs are frauds, and they don't care about winning. They care about making money.
So you're revoking fandom.
Not revoking fandom, but it just sucks that now both of my MLB teams are in dumpster fire rebuilds.
No, I know the feeling. I mean, just all three of us, honestly.
The Cubs very much remind me
losers
of the Stan Van Gundy Detroit Pistons. That's who they remind me of. A truly mid to below average team overpaying for a bunch of mid veterans with stuck in this place between rebuild and retool and just butchering it completely. So it's unfortunate. Who knows? Maybe they'll sign Carlos Rodon and they'll sign Dansby Swanson and all will be good again. But this team is nowhere close to competing, and giving $17 million a year to a bunch of bums is disappointing.
That's fair. It's a bad feeling, and I've been there. Cubs, you have a right to be disappointed, and I agree with everything you said. I know there's some bigger names, and I'll
say one last thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I hope that compensatory pick is worth it for letting Wilson Contreras walk. I hope it was worth it. Instead of trading him at the deadline or giving him what he deserved and you let him go to the rival, I hope that compensatory pick is worth it.
I know there's bigger moves, but I have to mention the return of Jesse Winker to the NL Central. Seattle Mariners have shipped him back to the Milwaukee Brewers in a trade that sent Colton Wong to the Mariners. Basically, Jesse Winker just couldn't live on the West Coast. They had to bring him back to the NL Central, and it's going to be interesting. He did not have the best season with Seattle, so I honestly think once again Seattle gets a good deal there. I mean, Colton Wong is a very good second baseman. Bigger names: Justin Verlander, 2-year deal, $86 million contract with the New York Mets. Jacob deGrom is a Ranger. That was a big deal. And then, of course, recently Xander Bogaerts to the San Diego Padres. That one's really interesting to me because now, I mean, you're running out of space on the field for these dudes. Tatis is going to have to move somewhere. You're talking Manny, obviously. Soto. Tatis will return. I know he's suspended for the first 50 games or whatever it is. So that factors in, but Tatis has got to go somewhere. San Diego is, if you want star power, they're stacked. They really are. That roster is the one that intrigues me the most. That was the 11-year deal. 11 years, $280 million to Xander Bogaerts with the Padres. They have a lot of long-term deals in the books. San Diego does. Manny's contract is a long-term deal. Bogarts now is a long-term deal. I know they have a couple others. They're not coming to me off the top of my head, but Tatis, I think, is on a fairly long-term deal. So
Joe Musgrove.
Musgrove as well. Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Joe Musgrove. Yeah, the stove is hot, and I'm loving it. But you see, all these shortstops are getting their paydays, and it's one of the things I love and don't love about Major League Baseball, because it's good to see, players be rewarded for their talent and their ability, and it's fun to see all this movement within the league. But at the same time, I get to sit here at the sideline and watch the Cincinnati Reds poor with no money, because Bob Castellini is a joke and refuses to spend for anyone except Kevin Newman, which is just disgusting. And it just makes me sad at the same time. And eventually we'll gather, the momentum and the young talent we want in the organization to go for it, quote unquote, and sign a bunch of, borderline stars like we did back in 2019. And then it'll still not work, and we'll just end up failing anyway.
Well, Dennis, I just
a horrible cycle.
I just wanted, since we're talking free agency, I'm just looking at some Cincinnati Reds, insider sites here about some moves that you guys are making, and I just wanted to get your thoughts about them. I'm seeing.
Well, I mean, can you do this? Can you do this exercise honestly? Telling me a name you've actually heard of?
Yes. I was going to bring up a name that I've heard of. Yes.
Because if you haven't heard of them, then I mean, I'm shocked that there's anybody you've heard of, is what I'm saying.
Well, I wasn't going to bring up the move, but I will mention that the Cincinnati Reds have signed a right-handed pitcher, Silvino Baracco, who I've never heard of in my life. So congratulations, Cincinnati. But I'm seeing
it's embarrassing.
From an article,
it's not even sad. It's embarrassing. Is what it is.
From an article posted 2 days ago, a big free agent that the Cincinnati's are looking to target is none other than, and maybe he's signed since this article was posted, but I don't know, none other than Andrew McCutchen.
Oh my god!
That is the free agent target signing right now. Over 35 years old, Andrew McCutchen.
The savior, old man Kutch. I mean, that's just horrible.
I'm just looking at the. I'm looking at
he
the
terrorized
comments.
us.
I'm just looking at the comments.
He terrorized
on this
us in the NL
Dennis.
Central for years.
And that's the comments in this article are saying, "Please no, God no." We don't need. I think my favorite was, we don't need
Save your money.
We don't need the Mike Moustakas of the outfield. That is stuff.
Dude, it's facts. Andrew McCutchen, big name, and really going to help our season ticket sales. And we would be lucky if he's hitting his weight by the summer months. A Moneyball reference for all you fans out there. That's horrible. I'm glad you saw that, because I hadn't even seen that, but that just makes me want to throw up.
You've signed a catcher, Johnny Pareda. No namer that I've never heard of in my life.
It's sad. This is how sad this organization is. And I hate to just drone on about the Reds, because I know it's the offseason and they've done literally nothing, and there's a lot of bigger things going on. But I'm sad about the fact that we lost Kyle Farmer. That's how sad the situation is when you lose Kyle Farmer, and you're like, dang, we got worse.
Well, at least you didn't pull a Detroit Tigers move and sign retread Cincinnati Red player Michael Papierski to the 60-man roster.
I mean, we're sitting all the catchers up there, man.
Oh
all
my
the catchers.
gosh.
Even though I heard rumors, Bobby. I did hear rumors about this. Tuck might be coming back to Cincinnati. Tucker Barnhart might want to return to the Queens.
Good. He blows.
You just filled a spot with Johnny Pareda, I think.
Because we're training Tyler Stevenson to play first base so he can take over for Old Man Votto.
You can't even.
Dennis, tell him how easy it is to play first base.
It's incredibly hard. You want me to take Giambi's spot at first base? That's right. I've never played first base before.
That's right. The GOAT, Ron Washington.
Ron Wash, baby. Tell him, Wash. It's incredibly hard.
There's a couple other things I wanted to bring up about the MLB. I'll just cycle through some quick signings that have come out over the past couple of days. The Mets signed David Robertson, so they've got a pretty nice 1-2 punch there at the back end of the bullpen with Edwin Diaz closing and Robertson is a potential setup man. They were also able to re-sign Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, $162 million. That's what you call an overpay for Brandon Nimmo. 20 mil a year, basically.
Oh, can I throw one in there real quick, actually? And maybe you're about to mention it, but I know Bobby has an affinity for this guy. Kenley Jansen to the Red Sox, baby. Kenley Jansen.
That was a big move. And what did the Braves do to recoup that? They got none other than Briefcase Joe Jimenez from the Tigers.
I was just about to say that Joe Jimenez has been traded, baby. No. Briefcase
Joe traded for the Braves' number 11 prospect.
You guys are unbelievable.
How did we pull this off?
Which is pretty good.
How did we pull this off?
That's a fleece job.
I think so. Briefcase Joe blows.
I'll give Briefcase his flowers. He had been turning it on.
Yeah, that's true. Xander Bogaerts, 11 years, $280 million. The Red Sox getting in the international pool as well, signing Masataka Yoshida, one of 2 big names from the Japanese league. I can't remember who the other one is. That's a big Japanese name that's also potentially coming over. The Athletics signed Aledmus Diaz. The Mets also signed Jose Quintana, so they're really going all in, signing Verlander, like Dennis mentioned, to replace DeGrom. So now you have Verlander, Scherzer, Quintana. A pretty solid 1 through 3. The Mets did lose Taijuan Walker to the Phillies, 4 years, $72 million. And the Giants signed Mitch Haniger. That was the other one I wanted to bring up. Very productive player in fantasy baseball for me for multiple years, going from the Mariners to the Giants. The only other thing I wanted to talk about the MLB, Dennis.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of very good baseball teams right now that will be very good for a long time. The Phillies practically have a dynasty, potentially. I mean, Trey Turner's signed long-term. Bryce Harper signed long-term. Their starting rotation, Zach Nola, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler.
I love you flipped it perfectly too. Like you didn't catch it after one. That was awesome.
Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez. Not to mention Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner. I mean, they just got a ton of dudes. Juan Soto. Juan Soto's in San Diego, which was the next team I was going to mention. Soto, Tatis, Machado, Cronenworth, Hae-Sung Kim, and now Xander Bogaerts. And then the Braves are still the Braves. Even if they lose Dansby Swanson, Ozzy's coming back from injury. They've still got rookie of the year Michael Harris. Still have Acuna. Still have Matt Olson. They're still loaded. Vaughn Grissom as well.
I mean, Ozzy's going to come back after tripping on himself.
The Dodgers are still loaded because they just have a farm system that seems to be infinite of good players. There's just, and the Mets and the Yankees are going to be garbage until they can figure out a replacement in the middle infield and at catcher. And the Mariners also making, they probably don't have the same amount of talent that like the Phillies and Padres do. But bringing in Teoscar Hernandez was a big time move. As you guys know, I'm Teoscar Hernandez's number 1 fan when it comes to fantasy baseball. I had him on my team 2 years in a row. There's a lot of good baseball teams, and it looks like the Cubs and the Reds and the Tigers will be looking at the basement for quite some time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Rangers. Forgot about the Rangers with their signing of Jacob deGrom, Dennis. What did you think about that?
Yeah, that was, interesting. I gotta say, I didn't necessarily think that that's the place that he would end up, but here we are, and I mean the Rangers are definitely better off for it. I mean, here's the thing: I can't even really tell you much about the Rangers roster because they haven't had a lot of success recently. But maybe they're on their way there.
Should be interesting.
I
The
mean, I can
AL
tell you.
West is
Uh, oh man, I forgot his name. What was the Bobby's starting pitcher that was basically a Cy Young candidate out of nowhere last year?
Martin Perez.
Martin Perez. Yes, Martin. I mean, that's stacked.
Yeah, the AL West is going to be tough. The Astros are still going to be very good. The Mariners are now making a run. The Rangers are probably going to be good. And who knows, maybe the Angels will finally put a good team around Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, but I doubt it.
Well, they did pick
But
up Mike Trout Jr., Hunter Renfroe, so that was pretty cool.
yes, they did, Dennis. They sure did. Well, yeah. Any other big MLB things you guys wanted to talk about? I think we pretty much got it all.
I don't have anything, but I do have something off topic. Breaking news.
Breaking
We have
news.
I,
Can we get a
17 to
siren?
16, 17 to 16 victory for the LA Rams on Thursday Night Football.
The Bake Show.
Unbelievable.
The Bake Show.
The Bake Show. The Bake
That's
Show
horrible news.
brought him back with 2 touchdowns down the stretch. And it just went final. It just went final as we were finishing MLB talk.
The Bake Show.
The LA Rams
The Bake Show.
improved to 4-9. The Vegas Raiders fall to 5-8. And I mean, Josh McDaniels, what are we doing? The Bake Show is returned, though. Thoughts?
That's absolutely horrible for the Lions draft pick that they're getting from the Rams. Absolutely horrible. Worst case scenario, actually. I thought that the Rams were going to completely lose out.
Falling apart. Complete falling apart by the Raiders tonight.
That's a disastrous result. Almost as bad as the Giants and Commanders tying in overtime. Wow. I was tracking it on my phone a little bit before I started cycling through the free agency signings. Baker Mayfield threw an interception that would have ended the game, but was called back due to defensive pass interference.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. My night is ruined.
The Bake Show with a 91.4 rating.
Yeah, I mean, that's John Wolford started this game.
When he got the playbook on the flight over to LA from Carolina, they throw him into the fire and somehow gets his job done. I mean, Derek Carr, I'm looking at these numbers. Dennis, what can you tell me about these numbers? 11 for 20 passing, for 137 yards and 2 picks.
I mean, very pedestrian at best. I mean, if we're being honest, and Vegas was really in control of this game for most of it. It was 16-3 into the fourth quarter, and I think they just kind of put it on cruise control, run Josh Jacobs, punt the football, and the Rams got enough opportunities that the Raider defense wasn't able to stop them enough times, and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and it's game over.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just not. I don't know enough about both of these teams to really dig into it, but that just speaks to poor coaching.
Derek, we should have known this was going to go south, because anytime that I pick the Raiders and pick them, anytime that I pick the Raiders, it's automatically, instantaneously a loss.
Unbelievable. What's that one quote about I'm inconsolable and my night is ruined or something like that?
No, that's your favorite quote.
My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. That's what it is. Yes. That's how I feel right now. Tough.
Definitely didn't mean to ruin the night, but that was just a shocking result. So I had to bring that up.
I mean, should we get right into some other NFL talk while we're at it?
I think it's time. Bobby, you want to start with some Detroit Lions talk? Because last Sunday we had, I mean, dare I say, an impressive victory.
I mean, it was truly impressive. Kind of what Derek and I classified last week as he's a more of a can't lose. Just absolutely have to have this game against Jacksonville. And as Derek was putting it in the in our group chat following the game, one of the first thorough dominations I've seen from the Detroit Lions, maybe in my lifetime, but definitely in a long time. That was a complete start to finish, foot on the gas. We're not going to give the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were coming off an impressive win in the previous week, we're not going to give them a single solitary chance to pull off anything, try any funny business, and just took care of business. And this is exactly what you look to see with a team that just quite frankly just flat out competes for 4 quarters. And when you have a team that competes for 4 quarters, you're going to give yourselves a chance to win a lot of games. And when you drop 40 points, I mean, once again, my man Jared Goff showing up to work, getting the job done.
He must have saw that article I wrote about him.
Yeah, well, he saw the hit piece that you put out on him and decided that it was time to write the narrative, because don't look now, but the man's got 3,000 yards of passing already. I mean, career year for Jared Goff. St. Brown looks like a legitimate top 10 receiver threat in the league at this moment in time. And we've got an extremely, and I'll let you guys share your thoughts on the Jacksonville game before we get into next week, but we've got an extremely intriguing matchup coming up next Sunday at Ford Field.
We absolutely do. It's going to be a good one, and I know that you guys have some thoughts on that. This was a fun football game to watch for me. I mean, 40-17
for me
final
too.
was at
Heck yeah,
23-6 at halftime. I mean, just pretty much start to finish, like you said. I know Trevor Lawrence left this game briefly with a bit of an injury, which looked a lot worse than it ended up being. So thank goodness for that. Obviously, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but you guys did it against a mobile quarterback. I mean, that's got to feel good. That's got to feel really good. Defense, once again, looked really good. Offense was competent. What was the stat you had on Jamal Williams? More touchdowns than Dalvin Cook?
I mean,
double the touchdowns of Dalvin Cook this season. Things seem to be clicking at the right time. I hope they can keep that up again this week. And, I mean, obviously, from my perspective, it's just always good to see an AFC team lose. So I was happy that you guys were able to pull it out.
Yeah, listen, this was one of those games where it was like, who's got next? The Jags, 4-7, the Lions, 4-7. One of those teams had to prove that they were going to be the ones to take the next step. And I was glad it was the Lions. That's a Super Bowl winning head coach on the other sideline there that got the absolute brakes beat off of him for 60 minutes. Could not be more, enthused with Dan Campbell's preparation of the team going into that week. First time that the Lions did not punt in a game since like 2017 or something like that.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
Scored on all 8 offensive possessions that did not end in a kneel down. The Sun God, electric as always. Jared Goff played well. He hit the wide open guys, which is, you won't ask for him to do much more than that, which the Jags have an absolutely horrendous pass defense. Like if you guys remember a couple weeks ago, when I said they made Matt Ryan look like an elite thrower of the football. No disrespect to Matt Ryan, but he's washed. So I'm glad that Jared Goff did look good against a defense that was going to give him an opportunity to look good. Some quarterbacks aren't always capable of doing that, and so that was nice to see. It was nice to see DeAndre Swift stay on the field for a full game and not pansy out. Nice to see Jameson Williams get some run, even if he didn't really do much, but just to get through the routine, to have the pads on, getting a little, just get some physical contact with the defensive player and just see how the knee feels. It was just a really good game. Lions have won 4 out of 5. And darn it, if they went out, I ain't saying playoffs, but playoffs.
Playoffs.
Playoff.
You want to talk about playoffs?
A 10 win without knowing how the rest of the season plays out for the Seahawks, 49ers, whatever dumpster fire team gets out of the NFC South, the Giants and the Commanders. You have to think that 10 wins probably gets the Lions in the playoffs. That tie with the Giants and Commanders last week was horrible for the Lions because now the tiebreaker they held over both of them is null because the Giants and Commanders are both up a half game, so we have to have more wins than both of them or one of them to get into the playoffs. But if you win out, control your own destiny, and the Giants don't have an easy schedule down the stretch. They've got to play Washington again. I believe they have to play Dallas.
They play Philly too.
And they believe they have to play Philly. So there's some tough games in there. Seattle, I think, has a little bit more lenient of a schedule. They've got 2 tougher games, I think, against the Jets and someone else. But they get the Rams, Panthers, maybe.
They play this is their last 5. They play Carolina, San Fran, at Kansas City, the Jets, and the Rams. That's what Seattle has down the stretch. So that's 2 or 3 losable games.
Are they a 6-win team right now?
7-5.
Yeah, so that's not going to cut it. Because they own the tiebreaker over us because our defense couldn't stop Geno Smith.
And because you guys folded, yeah.
There's a lot of games that if the Lions don't make the playoffs this year, they're going to look back on and be like, man, would have been nice to have that win at Minnesota. Would have been nice to have that win against Seattle. Would have been nice to not blow it to Buffalo. Would have been nice to not throw a pick 6 against Philadelphia. But maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to pull it out. But I'll say this much. I fully expect to win against the Minnesota Vikings. I've been saying it all year. They are frauds, and somehow they keep winning. But I'm going to die on this hill if I have to. We should have beat them in week 3 at Minnesota. This team is a lot better now than they were then, and I don't really think Minnesota is that much different of a team from the beginning of the season till now. Playing at home with a chance to keep the playoffs alive, I just don't see how this team loses. And because I said that, I'm sure they're going to break my heart in the most Lions way of fashion. So that's a risk I'm willing to take. So give me the Lions. They'll win by 6 or more. And I'm taking them in the pick'em.
There we go.
Well, you've got a fellow person that is taking them in the pick'em. Because, darn it, I've been taking them for weeks, and I ain't going to stop until I feel like it. And every week is the Super Bowl for the Detroit Lions. From here on out, no doubt. I mean, a winning out is almost certainly what it'll take to get this team to the next step. But you know what? I expect Ford Field this Sunday to be raucous. I expect raucous environment. I expect the city to be showing up, and I expect this team to be showing up because this is a game that quite simply you've got to have, and against a team like you said, Derek, that's extremely, extremely beatable, and the Lions know it, and the league knows it. As the Lions are 2-point favorites over a team that has twice as many wins as they do. I mean, you don't see that very, very often. And that's because, quite simply, the big F word, fraudulent, is what the Minnesota Vikings are. And I expect that Jared Goff is going to show up. I expect this offense to show up. And I swear, if this defense folds like a steel chair and fails me, I will be beside myself in a rate and maybe calling for Aaron Glen's job again. I will not rule that out. Because 2 losses to the Minnesota Vikings this season, even though they're 10-2, potentially going to be 11-2 if they beat us, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't sit well in my stomach, especially because, as I think Derek might admit too, every single game we've played this season, maybe barring the Patriots game, but I wouldn't even say that, we just might have been the more talented team on that given day. I mean, every single game, even with the ones we lost besides New England, we were right there. And like I said, would have been nice, like Derek said, a lot of what ifs. You know, if we would have had this win, we would have been in a better position. Well, you know what? It's enough with the what ifs. It's time to grab the destiny, like Derek said, and start winning ball games. And if we start winning these ball games, if we beat Minnesota, there's not a whole lot of teams that I don't think that we can beat that are remaining on the schedule. If you can darn near beat Buffalo, then you can beat the Minnesota Vikings, and I expect that to get done on Sunday. And I expect them to cover the 2-point spread. And no, it's not much. Please don't let Justin Jefferson have a montage against us. Please, thank you. Please don't let Kirk Cousins turn into Hall of Famer Joe Montana at 1 p.m. Because for some reason...
it is a 1 o'clock game.
For some reason, I hate even having to bring this up. For some reason, the Detroit Lions can't get a primetime ball game ever.
Here's the interesting thing. If they get into week 17, week 18, when do we play the Jets?
I'll look it up.
Is it next week? I think next week is the Jets.
Yeah, it's next week. It's
next
Jets,
week.
Panthers, Bears, Packers.
It could get very interesting where I could see a world where the Lions get flexed into a primetime spot in a game against the Jets. Both teams fighting for playoff position. 2 entertaining teams. We could get flexed.
Something's telling me, Derek, and I don't know why this is. Maybe it's just years past speaking to me now. Something's telling me that this is coming down to week 18 with a playoff spot on the line. Why? I agree. Do I feel like this is it? You know, even with Aaron Bumlord Sickle Rodgers
and the return of Matt Flynn to Green Bay.
Okay,
market.
I'm not well after that comment, but if it comes down
1 week at a time, Bob.
I know, and it's going to take a big victory this week, which, mind you, we are well within our means of reaching my 8-win goal for this team for this season. Well within the 8-win, which I said because 6 wins,
which was the most ambitious of all of us.
Remember, this season I said 6 wins is a failure, and I think if we make it out of this season with 6 wins, given where we're at now, it's an absolute freaking failure. But with the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers remaining, all of which we should definitely beat.
Keyword should.
Yeah. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Make no mistake, though. Make no mistake.
What do we get?
The Lions are a good football team. They're a good football team. They're not a great football team. Otherwise, they'd have above 500 record. But they are a good football team. And
they don't want to see us.
I said it last week. I'll say it again this week. This is not the same old Lions. I said they were borderline. They were on thin ice. They were about to go through the cracks. Going into that Green Bay game, they were a half millimeter away of ice from being in same old Lions territory, but they put some distance between it.
Where are we at now? Where are we at now in ice thickness?
There's a lot of room. It could all come crashing down in an instant.
Of course it could.
But no, really, very good football team. And I think next year could be a year where they really start to make some noise. And I said it in my article from a few weeks ago that good teams beat bad teams. That's the mark. The mark of a good team is the team that beats the bad teams and the teams they're supposed to beat. The Lions have done that so far, and they'll have more opportunities to do that. To get to the great team, they'll have to beat the other good teams. They can start that this week with Minnesota. Dennis,
Thank you.
go ahead and give us your thoughts on the Lions Vikings, and then I've got some questions about the Bengals.
I mean, yeah. I mean, shoot, as far as that goes, because I'm sure I got a lot of answers. The Detroit Lions, I mean, you guys laid it out perfectly. Just being in this spot, and I don't know, you guys might have some different feelings, but I know that when Cincinnati was really going through those lows, you know, the end of the Andy Dalton era, there was the whole Ryan Finley thing, all of that disaster. You know, 1-2 win teams basically. It just felt good to be back in the picture. To see the logo on In the Hunt
Meaningful
was enough.
games in December.
That's right. Like it.
In the Hunt,
I think you guys both
accept graphics.
You're exactly the In the Hunt, the graphic. You guys are accepting of the fact that you're not going to be Super Bowl contenders right away,
Yet.
but you have to take steps and you have to get excited about. And it's easy to get excited about being in the conversation and playing these games that matter down the stretch. And so I'm happy for you guys in that regard. I think you have more than just a chance against Minnesota. And you guys know that I love Minnesota and I've been bandwagoning on them all year. But this should be a competitive football game. And I acknowledge that the Vikings can only win games by 6 points or less. So it should come down to the wire. And if you can make a play or two that swing things in your favor, I see no reason why Detroit can't walk out of Ford Field with another victory this Sunday. So I'm excited to watch it. This should be good.
Will that mean you're putting the Lions as your pick'em win, Dennis?
There's debate going on. I just might, though. I just might.
Come on, ride the wave, Dennis.
I'm glad that you're starting to ride the wave a little bit here.
I told you.
He's starting to get there. He is.
I told you that I was close. I wasn't willing to ride with them for Buffalo, but I've been close.
I know you didn't, but you probably were thinking you should have after watching it.
I've watched the Lions many years, Bob. Many years.
No.
And I do not regret picking against the Lions whatsoever. I do not regret those decisions. I have a 9-point lead in our pick'em for a reason.
I see.
Anyway, Dennis.
We got some questions, apparently.
The Cleveland Browns are your kryptonite. No questions about it. Whenever the Cleveland Browns come to town, they run you guys off.
And it was the Bake Show normally. Just wanted to put that out there.
Earlier this year, Halloween, Jacoby Brissett lit you up. And it always just seems like the Browns, just like for the MSU Spartans basketball team, that Northwestern, regardless of how good or bad they are, always nails MSU. The same thing can be said for the Browns. They always just seem to have your number. I have no idea if there are even any stats to give this up. This is pure speculative thoughts. Can I count on the Bengals to not screw me over this week?
So we're just not going to discuss last week at all. We're just going to go straight into the Bengals won't beat the Browns this week. That's what we're going to start with.
My apologies, Dennis. You deserve credit for that victory.
I don't even get second to pat myself on the back.
You do. You do. You can go ahead and address that. I'll give you your flowers as well. That was impressive. I said it in our group chat. That was a double revenge game for the Chiefs for both last year's regular season loss and the AFC Championship game loss. And now Joe Burrow is the only quarterback in the league with what? Not only is he undefeated, but with 3 wins against Patrick Mahomes. I don't think any other quarterback in the league has 3 wins against Patrick Mahomes.
There's one other one. There's one other one.
There's one
Thomas
other
Edward
one.
Brady.
Oh, that's
But it
right. He's
wasn't
3-3, I think.
but it wasn't consecutive. Burrow is the only quarterback to ever win 3 consecutive starts against Patrick Mahomes. But the only
Yeah,
other quarterback with 3 wins is Mr. Tom Brady.
I mean, Dennis, I will be right back. Go ahead and bloviate. I mean, just go off.
I mean, I was just hyped during this game. Bobby will tell you it was. I mean, there were some expletives being thrown around during portions of this game. I got to be honest, because I care, because I care about this team and they're exciting to watch. I heard a take from somebody in the national media today that the Bengals are the most exciting team, most fun team to watch in the NFL right now, and that warms my heart. It warms my heart because that's how I feel about them. Um, Let me tell you something. Joe Burrow looked really good in this football game. And there's been moments throughout this season. I mean, obviously it happens every single year with different guys, even the great quarterbacks where they don't have their best games, they don't have their stuff, and it happens. It's okay. In this football game, and apparently against Patrick Mahomes, he brings his stuff. Um, Super accurate, made good decisions all day long. The line did a good job protecting him. We got Samaje P. Ryan involved again, and he balled out. The defense showed up when it really mattered. The strip of Travis Kelce really was the difference in this game. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a, I don't like to think that I'm blind. I like to think that I'm a little close to unbiased Bobby. I'm not. I'm definitely biased, but I'm close to unbiased Bobby. I try. Um, this game could have gone either way because it's 2 great teams. There's easily a world where Kansas City marches down the field, doesn't turn the ball over, and wins this football game. Distinct possibility that would have happened. You play this game 10 more times, they might win 6 or 7 of them. I don't know. But being in the position that they were and playing just the way they did visually, for me, the eye test, they deserve to be there in this game. The fact that they came out on top, cherry on top when it comes to record, when it comes to playoff seeding, all that kind of stuff. But just the fact that they competed this whole game and darn near, for a good portion of the first half especially, were in control of this football game. It just makes me happy. It just made me happy to see. And, just being there in this position and playing against what Tony Romo couldn't stop calling a dynasty in the Kansas City Chiefs was just amazing to see. It really was.
Dennis,
It was encouraging, gives me confidence for the rest of the season. Go ahead, Derek.
I just wanted to interrupt since you brought up Tony Romo, and I love bashing Tony Romo when he's just meat riding a team.
I mean, he said dynasty about 50 times.
Can you be a dynasty if you only have 1 championship in
I don't know.
4 years, 3 years?
I agree. That's why I brought it up. But it's okay. To his credit,
I mean,
he might have
how
said
many other
something along
teams?
the lines of like
How many
dynasty in the
other teams?
making. But
How many other teams have won a championship since the Chiefs' last championship? Let me see.
a few. I'll wrap
They
up my
won in
thoughts on last
2020.
week.
They won in 2020. How many Super Bowls have they appeared in even? (2019 and 2020). So they appeared in 2 Super Bowls, won one of them, and I just don't know how that's a dynasty. But yeah, Tony Romo is the ultimate meat rider for any team that he chooses that day. I remember hearing it for the Cowboys game,
Correct.
and
Yep.
I'm sorry that you had to hear it for the Bengals game, Dennis. But props to you for taking the
That's
Bengals in the pick'em. Respect that.
Thank you. I mean, you got to. You absolutely got to. And dang it, I'll be taking them again this week. I don't care if Cleveland's our kryptonite. Deshaun Watson looked like trash. Thank goodness for that. I heard a comment today, something about along the lines of the rust will shake off when it shakes off. I mean, that's just the attitude of a loser. Deshaun Watson, I sincerely hope we're about to punish him. Cleveland, what they score, a defensive like scoop and score and
Punt
a
return.
punt return.
Mm-hmm.
Offense was unable to do anything the entire game last week. Um, I fully expect uh, fairly dominant performance out of the Cincinnati Bengals this week, and if we don't, I will be madly disappointed.
I was right. The Browns have won 8 out of the last 9 and
It's been
5 in a
bad.
row.
I'll acknowledge that. I'll acknowledge that. But one of those last season was after we clinched the North and couldn't move in the playoff spot, and we benched everybody. So one of those is
Fair,
mute.
fair.
The loss earlier this season, I can only explain as a lack of preparedness coming off the Jamar Chase injury. It was the first game off the Jamar Chase injury, and the game plan was bad, which we touched on this podcast. The execution was horrible, and we just lost. We just got outplayed, quite simply. And last year, that Cleveland game that we actually lost, I believe, was fairly early in the season, and I don't have too much of an explanation other than probably the same thing that happened this year, where we just hadn't hit our stride yet, unprepared, yada yada yada. I think this is a different game, and maybe we're falling into a trap here. Maybe it's some of the same logic that I was using to say that Michigan should have been a little scared of Purdue, but I'm not scared. I'm not. I think Cleveland is worse with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. They will continue to be worse with him at quarterback. And coming off of coming off a big win and an important victory for us this season, I just don't see us throwing it down the drain this week.
Yeah, the other thing, and then I'll let Bob get some thoughts in. I want to give credit to the Bengals' second half defense. Outside of that Cleveland game,
Incredible.
the second half defense has been unreal. And last week, the Chiefs scored 14 in the third, and then not again the rest of the game. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Baby.
I don't know what it is about the Bengals coming out of halftime, but very similar to Michigan football. They just put their foot down in the second half and say no mas.
Big Lou gets them fired up for the second half, especially, man. It's crazy. And that actually brings me to one other thing I wanted to say. The defensive game plan this whole season, really, but especially against the Kansas City Chiefs, has been fantastic. Basically, what we said in this football game is, if you're going to beat us running the ball with Isaiah Pacheco and dumping it down to Jarrett McKinnon, go ahead. And that's what we forced Kansas City to do. And sure, did we get burned a couple times doing that? Did we give up some chunk plays on the ground? We did. And did Kansas City darn near win the football game? They did. But we didn't let Travis Kelce run up and down the seams, catching 50-yard bomb touchdowns. We didn't let MVS get involved. We didn't really let Juju get involved. And we didn't let Kansas City do what they wanted to do. And we got the Kansas City Chiefs to a point where it would be a one-score game, where it would come down to a play. And dang it, we made the play. Dang it, we did it. We stripped Travis Kelce. I mean, that was impressive. That took an extra amount of effort because that by no means was a loose football. I mean, we're talking about going in and ripping a football out of someone's hands when they're trying desperately to get it to the ground. A very talented and strong football player in Travis Kelce. That's just what it takes. That's just what it takes.
Bob, we've talked a lot about the R word this year in the beginning of the year. Good old regression word. The Bengals, shades of 2021, a near perfect parallel.
It's crazy. It is.
Starting to pick it up when it matters most. I ask you this, Bob. Is this a trap game for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yes. It is a trap
Absolutely.
game.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely. I guarantee it's a trap game for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you said it best. The numbers, men lie, women lie, but the numbers don't lie. And 8 of the last 9 times you went up against the Cleveland Browns, I don't care who you benched, who you had out there, you lost. And
Well, you know what's funny? The Cleveland Browns have a completely different roster every time we play them. So you can't even use historical numbers because they're always changing quarterbacks, changing coaches. The rosters are
exactly,
always
and
different.
every configuration of the Cleveland Browns, except one time, still beat you. So that
Well, this
doesn't
one's
really
not going to.
that doesn't really matter much either. And I know, Dennis, I know that nothing more would irritate you than being beat by Deshaun Watson. I mean,
I would
imagine,
lose a gasket.
imagine. So
See, here's the thing.
for
I'm
your
not even
sake,
putting that
for
possibility
your
in my head.
sake,
It doesn't even exist in my realm of how I view the world. It doesn't even exist.
Dennis, for your sake, I am going to come out and openly predict that the Cincinnati Bengals will win this ball game.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
But I think it's going to be down to the wire. I'll say that. And when it's down to the wire, you never know. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
One last thing, since you were talking about guarantee. I believe I guaranteed the Charles Barkley guarantee Lions victory last week in our
I
Snapchat
think you
group
did.
chat. Did I not?
Good. You might have. You might have.
Give myself a pat on the back.
Can you give us that guarantee this
Get
week?
yours.
Derek?
Absolutely.
I will give us the Charles Barkley guarantee. Like I said, I think we beat them by 6, if not more, because they're Mac Jones, who can't hit an ocean if he fell out of a boat, threw all over the Minnesota secondary. Mike White, if Mike White was like 6% better, their drives would have ended in touchdowns instead of field goals. The Lions, golly, all the years I've said that the Lions can't win games with field goals, this year they're one of the better teams in the league at getting red zone touchdowns. They're not going to be settling for field goals against Minnesota. And that's pretty much been the way Minnesota's played this whole year. Bend, don't break, force a field goal. And I just think the Lions are a much better team now than they were then. Defensively, they're leaps and bounds better. Especially since Amani Oruwariye has been benched. Thank you for nothing, Amani. I'll give you the Charles Barkley guarantee that we beat Minnesota this week. We have to.
Cool.
All right. Is it time for winners and losers?
Not quite, Dennis.
Not quite.
I know that I almost glossed over your victory over Kansas City, but I got to at least put out 2 or 3 more games that we have to discuss.
You're gonna make us predict garbage games again?
Dennis, they're not garbage games. I take great offense. I take great offense you calling them garbage games. They're interesting games
that nobody watches.
Fortunately for you, the matchups this week are pretty lopsided. And the matchups that are not lopsided are actually between 2 fairly good teams. Jets-Bills being one of them, Browns-Bengals.
Yeah, there's some good games this week.
There's a lot of good games this week. One game I wanted to call...
Browns-Bengals is lopsided, but okay.
One game Dennis, you know darn well divisional games are never lopsided on paper.
Very rarely.
Buccaneers 49ers was one I wanted to talk about. Tom Brady on Monday Night Football, never count that man out. Somehow, some way,
thank you.
The Bucs they managed to pull that game off. And only due to the greatness of Tom Brady. They're going up against a 49ers team that's going to have a full week of prep with none other than Mr. Irrelevant Brocktober Purdy. The 49ers are a good team, and I think they have the sort of system where anyone can be relatively successful as their quarterback. But this game just screams like 17-16, and I don't know who wins. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Yeah, I'm really up in the air on this one just because, like, I think one of these weeks Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay offense is just going to break out. Like,
You think so?
And I never know which week it's going to be. or at least because I think it'll happen. Um, Gosh, it's just hard for me to see Tom Brady getting beat by Brock Purdy. And I know it's not just Brock Purdy. There's a lot of talent on that San Francisco roster on both sides of the football. And this obviously they're favored in this game for a reason. But I'm going with Tom. I'm riding with Tom on the road. But he's going home. He's going home to the Bay Area where he was born and raised, and hopefully he can pick up a dub. Because I don't want to hear any more about how if Atlanta wouldn't have went to bed, they would be leading the division.
Dennis?
Yeah, I think I'm running with the. It feels a little weird to say this since both teams won last week, but what I would consider more momentum in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of kind of a really a lopsided game between the halves. I mean, just dead in the first half, and then Tom Brady did it again. Really, just in the last like 10 minutes is really all it was. But
Even less. It was like the last
coming off
5.
of that, yeah, because they punted with like 5 something on the clock, which was I know controversial at the time, and one of the first things they asked Brady after the game, but it worked out. It worked out. They got the W over the New Orleans Saints and the Red Rifle, who just looked absolutely defeated on the sideline.
Primetime Andy Dalton.
He can't do it. Absolutely disaster. And, the 49ers had a good win last week against the Miami Dolphins, mostly with Brock Purdy at quarterback. But I think, part of that, and you guys said it, the 49ers have an offense where that's not what I was going to say. Where just about anybody can be good. I mean, you're talking about a team that made Nick Mullins relevant and a solid quarterback for way longer than he should have been on any other team in any other system. That being said, the Bucs now have a week. I think there was an element of surprise and complete unfamiliarity with Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, nobody from Miami was preparing for Brock Purdy in any sense. Not that he was blowing him away physically or dominating in any way, but anytime you see something you're not expecting, I think it's difficult in game to make an adjustment. So that's why I'm also riding with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week.
I'll be the contrarian. I'll roll with the 49ers. Mostly because we just need them as Lions fans to run away with the division. So it's a principal pick to take the 49ers. The only other game I wanted to talk about quick, Ravens-Steelers. No Lamar versus Kenny Pickett. The Steelers, every week that we think they're dead from having a chance to be 500, they inch right back into it. And gosh darn it, Bob, Mike Tomlin's right there again. Going up against a Ravens team that looked horrible against Denver once Lamar went out of the game, but somehow squeaked out a win.
Derek,
this should be an ugly game.
Derek, I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers this week.
Oh no. Dennis, are you taking the Steelers as well out of principle?
As am I. I mean, the good news is somebody has to lose this game. That's the way I always feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens facing each other and having a matchup, which is just disaster. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world this year because it would give us, as long as the Bengals don't blow it against somebody they shouldn't, it gives us a chance in the division. Yeah. But I mean, I never root for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but this would be a nice one for them to pick up for our hopes to win the division, because right now, as long as Baltimore keeps squeaking out these ridiculously close wins that they shouldn't, we're not going to be able to catch them. So that would be big. And I do feel like Pittsburgh's just playing better football right now. I mean, you touched on it, 10-9. I know it was Tyler Huntley, but Tyler Huntley's been capable in these positions before. It's just that the rest of the roster is also pretty decimated, as it is every year. And There's a very, very small percentage of me that feels bad for the Baltimore Ravens because it feels like this happens every year where they just have nobody who's not on crutches
Correct.
um, at this point in the season. But it's happening again. And any loss that they can take, even if it is due to injury concerns, I'm on board with it. And I do feel like Mike Tomlin is once again not going to go under 500. I'm sorry.
Disgusting. Right bench baller. We'll do that before winners and losers. Um, Thank you for indulging me in my extra games of the week. I always
Of
appreciate it.
course, I just always try to give you a hard time with that one, but I enjoy it.
Unfortunately, there were no like real stinkers this week. Actually, I didn't say that. There were no real interesting games this week. Um,
I think you might have just slipped there, Bobby. I think Derek
a
might just.
Freudian slip, perhaps. Perhaps. Right bench baller. I only got one. Does anyone else have backups?
I have one
I
backup.
have backup.
Okay, I'll go first then, since I do not have a backup. And
And I'm going to
perhaps
try to
I'm
take your hand at Russian roulette this year or this week.
not this week, Dennis. Although I appreciate the concern. My right bench baller this week is going to be none other than Detroit Lions wide receiver DJ Shark. Getting a big week against his former team, the Jags. He's battled ankle injuries all year, and he produced 5 receptions, 98 yards with a long of 41. No touchdowns, but he came up with some really key plays when they mattered most and when we really needed a catch from him to extend drives. And it's always fun to beat your former team and, get the game ball afterwards. So DJ Shark is going to be my right bench baller. Bob, go ahead.
I'm going to go with none other than Ben Skrobenek from the LA Rams. Wide receiver for the LA Rams, who I had quite literally never heard of before tonight. But Ben had a bit of a breakout game, leading receiver for the LA Rams tonight in their comeback victory against the Raiders. 7 receptions for 89 yards, with a nice 12.7 average. Clearly the go-to man for Baker, and caught a quite nice ball on the last drive to get him the dub. True definition of a right bench baller with a name like that. Ben, congratulations, you've made the cut this week.
Dennis, round it off.
Man, I was thinking somebody was going to take one of these two, and I kind of wanted him to because I didn't want to necessarily have to pick, but I'm going to go with the other guy. One of them was Brock Purdy, who Mr. Irrelevant. Didn't
That's
necessarily
okay
ball out,
because
but did what needed to be done.
he may or may not be my winner of the week. So that's okay, Dennis.
Okay. Well, I was gonna do him, but I wanted to dig a little deeper. And this week, for whatever reason, I was feeling inspired. I felt like I'd been a little surface level recently, so I'm going with Jaquindon Jackson. Jaquindon Jackson. I think that's how I pronounce it. Jaquindon, if you're listening, you can let me know. Give me an email. If I got that wrong. Utah Utes running back freshman who in their big victory in the Pac-12 championship against USC ran for 105, 2 touchdowns, including a 53-yard touchdown late, which basically sealed the deal for Utah. And I remembered I was thinking back this week trying to think of something I saw, and I remember him busting one loose and getting pretty hyped in the end zone. So I had to go back and look up Jaquindon Jackson, right bench baller.
Awesome. Winners and losers. Bob, you want to start?
Winner of the week, undoubtedly, quite not really debatable, honestly. Baker the Bake Show Mayfield, for pulling off what I think is going to be quite underrated of an upset win. It's the Raiders. I know it's the Raiders, but when you literally get signed like 2 days before, have to have them express ship you the playbook. And so you can read it as you're like flying on the flight over to LA to play in that game on Thursday. And somehow you're able to, put together a half decent performance. And get a W. That's just a winner of the week to me. especially when you were out of a job and you had to get claimed off of waivers. So great job to Baker Mayfield.
Dennis.
Yeah, that's a good one. Definitely unquestionable. A couple options this week, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit with this because we'll see what happens this week. But I'm going to go with Desmond Ridder, baby. News broke today. The Atlanta Falcons are benching Marcus Mariota to give the rookie a shot, and UC Bearcat product. I'm excited. I think he's going to be able to do more than maybe is expected of him, and I hope to see it this Sunday and beyond.
Sure. My winner of the week, as previously alluded to, Mr. Irrelevance, Brock Purdy, the first ever Mr. Irrelevant quarterback to throw a touchdown in the NFL. Pretty cool achievement.
That's
Andy
pretty cool.
Andy got the win in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo, who broke his foot, and unless this 49ers make a deep run in the playoffs, is out for the season. So yeah, big win for all Mr. Irrelevance out there. I know the Lions have had a couple Mr. Irrelevance during their time as a franchise, and they were too irrelevant to remember. So I'm sorry for forgetting their names, but Brock Purdy will be one that the NFL history books will remember. So that's my winner of the week. Losers. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm really not sure how to exactly word this besides the lovers of games that end in a winning team. Because I was once again forced to sit through a game that impacts the Lions' playoff hopes immensely and sit there and watch a tie. Why we play 60 minutes of football plus another overtime period to not declare a winner is beyond me and needs to be changed immediately.
So your take is loser of the week is anti-tie fans.
Yes.
I think I like it. That's great.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I actually didn't have too many things that came to mind for losers this week. I guess I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a little easy, but I mean, come on. It just collapsing against Baker Mayfield, who literally just got off the plane. I know it's a piggyback off Bobby's winner, but that's just a disaster. Josh McDaniels, what are we doing? We've touched on the Raiders situation on previous podcasts, but man, that's tough.
My loser of the week, Spain without the S, but also with the S. Falling
that's a good one.
in the World Cup in PKs to Morocco. I watched that shootout, and Spain took 3 of the 4 worst penalty shots I've ever seen in my entire life. Zero confidence, strolling up to the ball nonchalant. The Moroccan keeper was in their heads. The only guy that took a confident penalty shot ripped it straight off the post, and then the last 3 looked like they didn't even want to be up there. So, España, you suck. Get out of here with all of your passing, your 1,000 completed passes. What good is completing 1,000 passes if you can't pass the ball into the net? And 4 attempts in a penalty shootout. So
that they've already promoted their 21 and under national head coach to the national team head coach now.
Correct.
Oh man.
Honorable mention winners. Anyone got some?
We touched on it briefly. Brandon Nimmo. 8-year, $162 million. I mean,
overpay.
Bringing in the bag, Brandon Nimmo wins that deal. I don't know who his agent is, but that dude's also a winner. Massively correct. Massive contract. Well done.
Northwestern basketball. Sorry, Bob.
Come on.
I mean, they just always get you.
What is it about LSU basketball for beating Penn State? Come on.
Sure, but Boo Booey, Bob. Boo Booey is the boogeyman.
It is quite literally the boogeyman.
He's the Boogie man. I mean, just can't shake it. Other winners I had, I mean, obviously, the Colorado Buffaloes. I mean, Dion immediately elevates their program, whether Dennis wants to admit it or not. Um, Honorable mention losers that I had, fans of teams that think their programs are more prestigious than they actually are.
Come on, this is targeting. I mean, come on, this is like
I nailed Bob as well.
No kidding.
I ripped Bob a little bit as
this
well.
is like never have you ever when you just know the person really well and you know one person you just target them. I mean, come on.
I'm sorry,
The
Dennis.
specific things that they've done.
I mean, UNLV did the same thing. They thought they were going to get Coach O, and then they had to settle for like Arkansas's offensive coordinator or something like that.
Sure, UC's not the only one.
Derek better be on the lookout. I mean, if his dear Wolverines fall in the CFP, Dennis, he's going to be on targeting alert.
Can you really? If we lose to TCU, that would be extremely disappointing. If we lost to Georgia, yes, it'd obviously be disappointing, but at least they'd be favored. So you have to at least give me that one.
I would print out Max Duggan's face and just have it like the entire pod.
Don't give Bob ideas for his green screen for the next pod.
The green screen.
A late night loser, late night breaking news as of 40 minutes ago. Late night losers, the Stanford Cardinal, Jason Garrett will not be coaching the Cardinal and is instead going to continue working at NBC and Football Night in America and with Notre Dame football. So big F's in the chat for Stanford. Oh, honorable mention Purdue, because they got rid of Jeff Brom, and Jeff Brom gets to go home to Louisville. So,
yeah.
All right, Bob, as always, our segment to wrap it up, Garbage Time Takes Your Money. I will briefly recap the previous episode's picks. Bob gave us the doozy of Vikings, Jets. The Minnesota was favored by 3. The over-under was 44.5. And oh boy, it got tight at the end. But unfortunately, the over hit, which makes all of us losers in that regard. And there were 2 of us that took the Jets to cover. Mike White just couldn't get it done. Those 2 individuals, unfortunately, were Bobby and Dennis, who took the Jets to cover. So a really rough 1 for 6 from the boys. Bob,
I was almost on Minnesota, dang it. I switched it last second.
You did too. You did, because Bob was going to be the contrarian, and then
he
couldn't anymore. Bob, what do you have to torture us this week?
Well, I've got another than the Arizona Cardinals against the New England Patriots for us this week. Quite intriguing. This is at Arizona. Current line is New England Patriots minus 1.5 points for New England. And over-under of the ball game being set at 43.5.
Maybe I should go to this game next Monday.
Yes. Dennis, thoughts on Cards, Pats?
I mean, I honestly haven't had a lot of thoughts on Cards, Pats, but if you're making me do it,
yep.
Man,
I can get tickets for
$76. $76 for Monday Night Football in Glendale.
Correct. It's not bad.
Man, you caught me off guard with this one. You really caught me off guard with this one.
It's a tight line. It's a tight betting line.
It is 1.5.
1.5 for the Pats.
I think I kind of like the Pats to win the game. So you know what? Give me the Pats. 1.5's not that much delay. That's close though. I don't think I have too much interest in betting this. But Arizona's kind of been a joke this year. So I think I'd rather have the Pats, who still have playoff hopes. By the way, they're on the outside looking in, but they're not out of it. So I think they're a little more motivated in this one. And I think Bill will have them ready. So give me that, and then over under. I don't see these offenses putting up that much scoring. So I'm going to go with the under.
This is a tough one because the Cardinals are one of the worst home teams in the NFL. They have like negative home field advantage, very similar to the Rams, where it always seems like other opposing fan bases invade SoFi Stadium. It's not necessarily that the Cardinals get their stadium invaded by other fans. For whatever reason, they're just diaper water at home. But for some reason, just thinking about the Patriots offense, it's just so bad. It's so bad. How many points did they score last week? 10 points against Buffalo. But they do get the mini bye since they played a Thursday night game. You know what? I'm going to take the Cardinals to cover. Maybe they squeak it out. Maybe they only lose by 1. So I'll take Arizona. And I'll take the over since the under didn't hit last week and it screwed me. So I'll take Arizona and the over.
One of the reasons that I picked this game is because I knew that I had the contrarian pick from America's pick secured if it came to that. But Derek beat me to the punch. I'm taking the Cardinals as well, plus the 1.5, and I also want the over on this one because 43.5 is just a very, very low line for Arizona offense that's definitely capable of putting up enough points to help that to do their side of the bargain. It's just going to be a matter of if the Patriots can get anything going, which I'm unsure, but I'll take my chances.
Yeah. Dennis, you took New England in the under, right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, this game just like screams 24-20 to me. Or 24-23. I don't know.
I was going to say 17-13.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the Cardinals will score more than that. I really do. I don't think the Patriots defense is quite that good.
Fair enough.
But we will see. That's why we play the game, dang it.
That's right. That's why we play the game.
Which brings me one last honorable mention loser, Nick Saban. Come on, man. That was so beneath Nick Saban. Who convinced him and encouraged him and told him that was a good idea to beg and cry and whine at the feet of the College Football Playoff Committee on national TV? Who told him that was a good idea? If you have to beg for your team and start talking about if Vegas was putting out the spreads, who would be favored, you don't deserve to be in the playoff.
Oh, and we weren't fully healthy in the games that we lost.
And for someone like Saban to start pointing at point spreads as someone who pretty much denies the existence of Vegas every single season to try and prevent his team from eating the rat poison or whatever bogus he talks about. I mean, why even play the game if Bama's going to be favored in the college football playoff? Why even play the game? Why even play the game against Tennessee if Bama was favored? Why even play the game against LSU if Bama was favored? Oh, that's right, because the favored team isn't always the best team that day. And Bama had plenty of chances to not lose 2 games on the last play of the game. Plenty of chances. They were just as close to having 4 losses as they were to having no losses, because they very could have easily lost to Texas. They very easily could have lost to Texas A&M, and they very easily could have lost to Ole Miss. So, yeah, I thought that was super pathetic from Nick Saban. And it's just too bad I didn't get to tell him that to his face, because that would have been fun. Because, I mean, I know Bob's a big Roll Tide guy, but come on, Nick Saban begging at the feet of the College Football Playoff Committee. Bob, tell me that wasn't embarrassing. At least a little bit.
It was a little embarrassing, but I'd be lying if I would say I didn't want to see him in it. I mean, I do. I want to see him in the playoff. I don't know, something about Alabama. I just want to see them play.
Fair.
And it's just part of it comes from the fact that I'm just not convinced that TCU could beat Alabama. And so if I was more secure in that, maybe that's a misguided belief, but if I was more secure in that, maybe I'd be like really, really against it. But like, I just like watching Alabama play the best.
Sure.
And I think it would have been really, really interesting to see, a potential, if it came down to it, another potential Georgia-Alabama matchup, that's such a storied, rivalry in its own right, besides the, potential of Michigan-OSU. The kind of, the two rivalries kind of like coming together into one. This is why I'm so excited this is why I'm excited for expanded playoff, because we'll get to see, a team like Alabama would have made it in, and then
Correct.
would have had the chance to show the committee or the nation that TCU was, if they played TCU, that what was anybody thinking,
I think,
and there was really the thing that's the most absurd about it, Derek, is that there's really no reason to beg when. Thinking about this now, there's really no reason to beg when your team will literally annually be in the college football playoff upon the expanded playoff. Because nobody's denying that Alabama and Nick Saban are a great program and are a good team. They're going to continue to remain an elite program at the college level for the foreseeable future, probably till Nick retires. And so, excuse me, they're always going to be in that top, if they're not right in the top four, number one, they're going to be knocking on that threshold, and therefore they're going to be in anyway. They would have made it in the expanded format if it was there this year. They were number 5. So, really, no, I mean, let somebody else have their flowers for 1 year. I can understand it. Sure, does Alabama play a very, very difficult schedule? Yes. But so do a lot of teams. You got to play who you play, and that's just a fact of the matter.
I was just disappointed because, yes, Alabama was playing better at the back end of the season, but they didn't play anybody. They lost 2 out of their last 5 because they lost to Tennessee and they lost to LSU, and then they beat Austin Peay, no name, a terrible Auburn team that Penn State beat in Auburn, and Auburn went to Alabama and got blown out. And then the other team they played was that Ole Miss game where they nearly lost that one too. And yeah, like Dennis said, bringing up the injuries, everyone's got injuries. Nick Saban, you're not, special just because you have injuries and Bryce Young was only 85%. Give me a break. But yeah, I would just ask this question. Who else would get a chance to beg at the committee's feet on national TV and not
absolutely
one,
correct,
but 2 college football Power 5 conference championships? Not 1 halftime, but 2. Who else gets that privilege? Nobody but Nick Saban. So that's all I got to say on that. Don't lose 2 games next time, Nick. Don't lose 2 games.
That's absolutely right.
Bob, wrap us up. Plug the socials.
At Garbage Time Takes on Instagram, at Garb Time Takes on Twitter, and of course, feel free to like, comment, subscribe on this video, and check out our website in the description below.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks again so much for watching. We appreciate it. We'll probably have an update on what we'll do for, the winter break, Christmas time stuff. We'll probably have a little bit of a break, but we'll worry about that when we get there. For now, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again so much for watching. We appreciate the support. And with that, in 3,
2,
1, peace.
Peace.